In 1943, a young Italian soldier is sitting on the cold streets of Rhodes, Greece, with nothing to his name, no money, no food, and no idea what the future holds. The war had taken everything from him, and the people walking past him that day had no reason to believe this broke and homeless teenager would ever amount to anything. But what none of them could have known was that this young man, Ferruccio Lamborghini, would go on to build one of the most iconic car brands in the entire world, and he would do it. Not because he planned to, not because he studied for it, but because a man named Enzo Ferrari told him to mind his own business. This is the story of how a poor Italian farm boy, who once slept on the streets of a foreign country, went on to create the Lamborghini Motor Company and change the world of luxury sports cars forever. The story begins in 1916 in a small rural village called Rhodes di Cento, located in the Ferrara province of northern Italy. It was here that Antonio and Evelina Lamborghini welcomed their second child into the world. Ferruccio Lamborghini, the Lamborghini family were simple, hard-working farmers who spent their days tending to their land and growing crops in the fertile plains of the Po Valley. They were not wealthy by any measure, but they were a proud family who believed deeply in the value of hard work and persistence. From the very beginning, Ferruccio was different from the other children in the village. While his siblings and friends spent their free time playing in the fields, Ferruccio was drawn to machines. He was fascinated by anything with an engine, anything that moved under its own power, and anything that could be taken apart and put back together. He would spend hours crouched beside the farm equipment, studying how it worked, how the parts connected, and why certain things moved the way they did. It was an obsession that his parents struggled to understand, but could not ignore. His father, Antonio, recognized early on that Ferruccio had a rare and natural gift for mechanics, and rather than pushing him away from it, he encouraged it as much as a farmer could. He allowed young Ferruccio to tinker with the farm tools and machinery, and by the time Ferruccio was a teenager, he had already developed a level of mechanical intuition that most trained adults did not possess. He could diagnose problems with engines just by listening to them and fix things that other people had given up on entirely. But life on the farm was not easy. The Lamborghini family, like most rural Italian families in the 1930s, lived a modest and sometimes difficult life. Money was tight, resources were limited, and the future was uncertain. Ferruccio knew from a young age that if he wanted a different life, he was going to have to build it himself. And so, with the encouragement of his father, he pursued a formal education in mechanics, enrolling at the Fratelli Taddea Technical Institute in Bologna, where he studied mechanical engineering and began to develop the technical skills that would later define his career. He was a dedicated and talented student who absorbed everything his teachers put in front of him, and by the time he completed his studies, he had a solid foundation of knowledge and a burning desire to put it to use. But before Ferruccio could begin building the future, he had imagined the world intervened in 1940. Italy entered the Second World War, and Ferruccio, like millions of other young Italian men, was conscripted into the military. He was assigned to the Regia Aeronautica, the Italian Royal Air Force, where he served as a mechanic, maintaining and repairing aircraft engines. It was demanding and dangerous work. But for Ferruccio, it was also the greatest technical education he had ever received. Working on aircraft engines pushed his skills to an entirely new level and gave him experience with complex machinery that very few civilians would ever encounter. His service took him to the island of Rhodes in the eastern Mediterranean, where he was stationed for several years, working under difficult and often dangerous conditions. But then in 1943, as the war began to turn against the Axis powers, Ferruccio found himself in an increasingly desperate situation. The Italian military was collapsing. Supply lines were breaking down, and soldiers were left stranded without resources or direction when Italy eventually surrendered to the Allied forces. In September 1943, Ferruccio was left in one of the most vulnerable positions of his life, stranded on the island of Rhodes, far from home, with no money, no supplies, and no clear way back for a period of time. Ferruccio Lamborghini, the future billionaire, was essentially homeless, sleeping wherever he could find shelter and surviving on whatever little he could scrounge together. The man who would one day build one of the most expensive cars in the world was at that moment just another forgotten soldier with nothing but the clothes on his back. But even in those circumstances, Ferruccio did not sit still. While stranded on Rhodes, he used his mechanical skills to help the local community repairing vehicles and equipment for people who needed it. It kept him busy, kept him sharp, and kept him sane when he finally managed to return to Italy after the war ended in 1945. He came back with nothing but his knowledge, his hands, and an unshakable determination to build something of his own. Returning to Rinazzo di Cento, Ferruccio surveyed the landscape around him and saw both devastation and opportunity. Italy had been torn apart by the war, but that also meant there was an enormous amount of work to be done. The country needed to rebuild, and rebuilding required machines. Ferruccio noticed that the farmers in his region were struggling desperately with outdated and broken equipment. The war had left a massive shortage of working tractors and farm machinery, and the farmers who needed them most had no way to get them. Ferruccio saw the gap and immediately moved to fill it. He began collecting surplus military vehicles and equipment left behind by the retreating armies, disassembling them and repurposing their parts to build functional tractors. It was brilliant, resourceful, and deeply practical works, and the farmers in the region were willing to pay for it. He started small, working out of a tiny workshop with minimal tools and even less capital. But demand for his tractors grew quickly. Word spread that Lamborghini's machines were reliable, durable, and affordable, and orders started coming in from across the region in 1948, with demand far exceeding what he could produce from his small workshop. Ferruccio officially founded Lamborghini Trattori, his own tractor manufacturing company. The timing was perfect. Italy was in the middle of a major agricultural boom as the country worked to rebuild its food supply after the war, and farmers across the nation needed exactly what Ferruccio was selling. His tractors were not fancy, but they were tough, practical, and built to last just like the man who made them. The company grew at a remarkable pace. Within just a few years, Lamborghini Trattori had become one of the most respected tractor manufacturers in Italy, employing hundreds of workers and shipping machines all over the country. Ferruccio expanded his production facilities, invested in new equipment, and continued to improve his designs. With each passing year, by the mid-1950s, he was a wealthy and successful businessman with a thriving company, a beautiful home, and a lifestyle that the poor farm boy from Rinazzo could once only dream about. And like many wealthy Italian men of his era, Ferruccio developed a taste for fast cars. By the late 1950s, Ferruccio Lamborghini had become an enthusiastic collector of high-performance automobiles. He owned several prestigious cars, but his favorite and most prized possession was a Ferrari. He loved the way it looked, the way it sounded, and the way it felt to drive one of the most admired cars in the world. But as time went on, Ferruccio began to notice something that bothered him deeply. The clutch on his Ferrari kept failing. Now, for most Ferrari owners, this might have been a minor inconvenience, something you simply took to the dealer and had repaired. But Ferruccio Lamborghini was not most Ferrari owners. He was a trained mechanical engineer who had spent his entire adult life building and fixing machines, and when he examined the clutch on his Ferrari, he immediately recognized the problem. It was the same type of clutch used on his own Lamborghini tractors, and he knew it was not suited for a high-performance sports car. He believed he knew exactly how to fix it. So Ferruccio did something that, in hindsight, seems either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. He decided to go directly to Enzo Ferrari himself and tell him about the problem. Accounts of exactly what was said during this meeting vary depending on the source, but the spirit of the encounter has been repeated consistently across decades of automotive history. Ferrari, it is said, dismissed Ferruccio, entirely telling him in no uncertain terms that a tractor maker had no business telling a sports car manufacturer how to build his cars. The exact words differ across retellings, but the message was clear and cutting. You make tractors. Lamborghini, stick to what you know. For most people, that would have been the end of it, an embarrassing moment to forget and move on from. But Ferruccio, Lamborghini was not wired that way. The insult did not deflate him, it ignited him. He left that meeting with one singular burning thought. If Ferrari would not fix the problem, then he would build a better car himself, and that decision changed the automotive world forever. Ferruccio returned home from his meeting with Ferrari and immediately began laying the groundwork for an entirely new venture. Lamborghini Automobili in 1963, he officially founded the company and established a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility in Sant'Agata Bolognese, a small town just a short distance from both his tractor factory and Ferrari's own headquarters in Maranello. The proximity was not accidental. Ferruccio wanted Ferrari to see what he was building to bring his vision to life. Ferruccio assembled one of the most talented teams of automotive engineers and designers in Italy. He hired Giotto Bizzarini, Ferrari's former chief engineer, who had recently left the company following an internal dispute. He brought in Giampaolo Dallara, a brilliant young engineer who would go on to become one of the most respected names in motorsport. He recruited Paolo Stanzani and a team of skilled craftsmen and designers who shared his obsession with perfection. The team worked with extraordinary intensity and focus, and in just over a year, they had produced something remarkable. The Lamborghini 350 GT debuted at the Geneva Motor Show in 1964, and the reaction from the automotive world was immediate and electric. Here was a car that matched Ferrari in performance, rivaled it in beauty, and in many respects surpassed it in engineering refinement. The 350 GT was powered by a 3.5-liter V12 engine capable of producing 270 horsepower and reaching a top speed of over 155 miles per hour. The automotive press was stunned that a tractor manufacturer had produced something this extraordinary. On his very first attempt, orders began to come in, and Lamborghini Automobili was officially in business, but Ferruccio was not finished. He had proven he could build a great car. Now he wanted to build a legendary one in 1966. Lamborghini unveiled what many automotive historians consider to be the most beautiful and revolutionary car ever made. The Lamborghini Miura. The Miura was unlike anything the world had ever seen. It featured a mid-mounted V12 engine, a design choice that was virtually unheard of in road cars. At the time, a low-sweeping body that looked more like a sculpture than a vehicle, and performance figures that left every competitor in the dust. It could reach 60 miles per hour in just 6.7 seconds and had a top speed of 170 miles per hour, making it the fastest production car in the world. At the time of its release, the Miura did not just compete with Ferrari, it completely overshadowed it. The car was featured on the covers of magazines around the world, celebrated by journalists, engineers, and car enthusiasts everywhere, and ordered by some of the wealthiest and most influential people on the planet. It became the car of choice for rock stars, actors, and royalty, and its iconic silhouette became one of the most recognizable shapes in automotive history. Ferruccio Lamborghini, the homeless soldier, the tractor farmer. The man Ferrari told to mind his own business had done it. He had built the greatest sports car in the world. The success of the Miura was followed by a string of equally remarkable vehicles, each one pushing the boundaries of what a road car could be. The Espada, the Islero, the Jarama. All of them were beautiful, powerful, and technically sophisticated, and all of them helped cement Lamborghini's reputation as one of the premier luxury car manufacturers in the world. Then, in 1974, Lamborghini unveiled the car that would define the brand for generations. The Lamborghini Countach, with its radical wedge-shaped body scissor doors and aggressive angular lines. The Countach looked like something from the future. It became the poster car of an entire generation, hanging on the bedroom walls of millions of children around the world who dreamed of one day owning one. And its legacy has endured for decades, influencing the design of sports cars right up to the present day. But behind the glamour and the glory, Ferruccio Lamborghini was quietly facing a set of challenges that would eventually force him to walk away from the company he had built. With his own hands, the early 1970s brought a series of devastating blows to the Lamborghini Motor Company. First, there was a strike at the factory by workers demanding better pay and conditions, which disrupted production and damaged the company's finances. Then came the oil crisis of 1973, which sent shockwaves through the entire luxury car market as fuel prices skyrocketed demand for high performance. Sports cars collapsed almost overnight, and Lamborghini's sales fell sharply. At the same time, Ferruccio had also suffered significant financial losses from a failed business venture in South America, where a deal to manufacture tractors in Bolivia had gone badly wrong. The combination of these setbacks put enormous strain on the company's finances, and Ferruccio found himself in an increasingly difficult position. In 1973, Ferruccio made the painful decision to sell his majority stake in Lamborghini Automobili to Swiss investors Georges-Henri Rossetti and René Lamer. He retained a minority share for a short time, but by 1974, he had sold that too, walking away from the company entirely at the age of 57. Ferruccio Lamborghini, the man who had started it all, was gone. He retired to a beautiful estate on the shores of Lake Trasimeno in Umbria, where he spent the rest of his life farming vineyards, producing wine, and occasionally tinkering with machines. The company he left behind would go on to change hands several more times, passing through various owners, including a brief and troubled period of bankruptcy, before eventually being acquired by the Volkswagen Group through its Audi division in 1998. Under Audi's ownership, Lamborghini was stabilized, modernized, and relaunched with a series of iconic new models that brought the brand to an entirely new generation of fans. Ferruccio. Lamborghini died on February 20, 1993. At the age of 76, he never returned to the automotive industry after selling his company, but he never needed. To the cars he built, the team he assembled, and the spirit of defiance and excellence he instilled in the Lamborghini brand were more than enough to secure his place in history. Today, Lamborghini is one of the most recognizable and desirable luxury brands in the world. Its cars sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars each, and the waiting list for its most exclusive models stretches for years. The company produces around 10,000 vehicles per year and generates revenues of over $2 billion annually. And every single one of those cars carries the emblem of a raging bull, a symbol that Ferruccio chose because he himself was born under the sign of Taurus and believed deeply in the qualities it represented: strength, stubbornness, and an absolute refusal to back down from a cold street corner in Rhodes, Greece, to the most prestigious showrooms in the world. Ferruccio Lamborghini proved that the greatest things are often built not from opportunity or privilege, but from anger, determination, and the unshakable belief that you can do it better. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe and like the video. Until then, I'll see you in the next one.